Many believe that to receive a miracle, one must shout their prayers to the heavens, convinced that the loudest voice is the first one heard. They are taught that a display of fervent volume equals an exhibition of profound faith. But that, my friend, is one of the most perilous misunderstandings in the life of faith, a dangerous distortion of divine communication that can lead sincere souls astray. It suggests that God is hard of hearing, or perhaps partial to the most vocal among us, when nothing could be further from his eternal truth. I have walked this earth for many years, and have seen the hand of Deus move in ways that defy all human logic, ways that confound the most brilliant minds and humble the proudest hearts. And I tell you a truth that has been forged in the crucible of experience, a truth tempered by countless seasons of both exuberant praise and profound quietude. The prayers that truly shake the foundations of heaven are often born not in the thunder of our desperate words, nor in the frantic clamor of our human striving. No, they are conceived and nurtured in the sacred and profound silence of our complete surrender, a stillness that resonates with the very heartbeat of eternity. This is a stillness that is not empty or void, but pregnant with divine power, teeming with the unseen activity of the Almighty. It is the deep, anticipatory quietude before the storm of blessings breaks upon your life, the holy hush that precedes a miracle that will speak for itself with more authority and clarity than anything you could ever utter with your finite voice. It is the sacred pause in the symphony of your existence, just before the majestic crescendo of God's intervention. Use does not require your noise to be convinced of your need. He is not deaf to your unspoken agony, nor blind to the silent tears that fall in the lonely hours of the night. He does not need your frantic explanations, for he knows the end from the beginning, understanding every intricate detail of your situation far better than you do yourself. He certainly does not need your desperate arguments to persuade him, for his love is already secured for you at Calvary, unconditional and unwavering. What he asks for, what he yearns for, what truly unlocks the floodgates of heaven, is the weighty, unwavering trust of your heart. And in certain seasons, the most powerful, the most earth-shattering declaration of your faith is not a shout or a fervent plea. It is, paradoxically, a profound, unwavering, and obedient silence. There comes a moment in the journey of every soul who truly walks with the Almighty when the world screams for a reaction, when your flesh cries out to defend itself against accusation, when your heart longs to explain its purest motives to those who misunderstand. But in that very moment of profound chaos, the gentle yet authoritative voice of Deus whispers a command that cuts through all the clamor: be still. This is not the mere suggestion of a well-meaning friend offering a piece of casual advice. No, my beloved, it is the immutable decree from the very throne of the universe, an imperative issued by the Creator of all that is seen and unseen. Be still, he commands, not because you are defeated and have nothing left to offer, but precisely because the commander of heaven's armies is about to engage in a battle that is not yours to fight. He calls you to stillness, not because you lack a voice or a valid defense, but because your very silence will become the magnificent stage upon which his glory will be displayed for all the world to witness. The world, in its flawed and fleeting wisdom, perpetually teaches us to fight for our place, to clamor to make our voices heard above the din, to argue our case with relentless persistence until we are publicly vindicated. It relentlessly tells us that to be silent is to be perceived as weak, to be regrettably overlooked, and ultimately to be forgotten amidst the noise of striving humanity. It preaches a gospel of self-assertion, where victory belongs to the loudest and most aggressive. However, the economy of heaven operates on a principle that is entirely upside down to the world's thinking, a divine paradox that defies human logic. The ancient book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14, gives us this unshakable, breathtaking promise, a lifeline for every weary soul. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Think of the sheer, awe-inspiring power embedded in that single statement. The creator of the cosmos, the eternal Dios who cradles the stars in his mighty hands and orchestrates the dance of galaxies, is offering to become your personal champion, your unwavering defender, your absolute vindicator. His only condition, his sole requirement for unleashing this overwhelming power on your behalf, that you step back from the fray, that you consciously hold your peace, and that you allow his omnipotent power to work unimpeded, without the clumsy and often counterproductive interference of your own limited efforts. When a miracle of truly divine proportions is being prepared in the unseen realms, Dios often demands your silence as the primary, most crucial ingredient of your faith, a testament to your trust in his perfect timing and omniscient wisdom. Why then this persistent, sometimes agonizing call to silence? Because some blessings, some divine appointments are so holy, so intricately woven by the majestic hand of Deus, that to expose them prematurely to the crude atmosphere of human opinion, to the corrosive acid of doubt, or to the venomous whispers of jealousy, would be to profane them, to jeopardize their very existence. They are too tender, too nascent to withstand the harsh scrutiny of a fallen world. I remember a man I met years ago, a good man with a heart full of zeal, who had received a profound and undeniably divine vision from Dios for a new, groundbreaking ministry. In his overflowing excitement, unable to contain the sacred fire within him, he told everyone who would listen, sharing the delicate blueprint of his God-given dream. But the vision was still a tender seed, freshly planted in the soil of his spirit, and the careless words of doubters became like heavy stones upon that fertile ground, crushing its early growth. The whispers of the envious became like insidious thorns that choked its nascent life, stealing its vital nutrients. He spent the next year not building the ministry that Dios had called him to establish, but tragically defending a vision that was not yet strong enough, not yet ready to be seen or understood by the uninitiated. Dios was teaching him, and by extension, teaching us, a powerful, unforgettable lesson. Some miracles must be carried in the sacred womb of silence, protected from the premature exposure to human judgment, until they are robust enough to survive and thrive in the world's harsh, often cynical climate. Your silence, therefore, is not a punishment or a deprivation. It is a sacred incubator, a divine sanctuary where God himself tends to the precious seed he has sown within you. Think of the humble farmer, a man whose entire life is a living testament to the profound wisdom of process, patience, and unwavering trust in unseen forces. When he plants a precious seed in the fertile earth, he does not dig it up every morning to ascertain if it has grown, impatiently checking for visible progress. He does not stand over the expansive field, shouting commands for the roots to immediately take hold and the stalks to shoot skyward. No, he understands the inherent wisdom of the unseen process, the silent, miraculous work that occurs beneath the surface. He trusts the mysterious alchemy of the soil, the sun, and the rain. He comprehends that the most critical foundational work of creation happens in the protective darkness, in the profound quietude, beneath the surface where no human eye can yet perceive it. There, in the silent, unassuming soil, a transformation of magnificent power is tirelessly taking place. So it is, my beloved, with the glorious promises Dios has planted in the fertile soil of your life. While the world may see only outward stillness, concluding that nothing is happening, Dios sees the deep, resilient roots of your miracle taking firm hold. While others perceive inactivity and mistakenly conclude you have been forgotten, Dios is diligently nurturing a breakthrough that, at the perfectly appointed time, will burst forth with unstoppable, undeniable life, astonishing all who doubted. This divine command to be silent is never meant to diminish you, to suppress your spirit, or to render you insignificant. On the contrary, it is meticulously designed to protect what Deus is actively birthing in you, to safeguard the sacred embryo of your destiny. You must understand, beloved, that we are not wrestling against mere flesh and blood, against human adversaries alone. No, as the Apostle Paul profoundly reminds us in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, our struggle is against principalities and powers, against the unseen forces of spiritual darkness that operate with malicious intent. These spiritual adversaries, these unseen enemies of your soul, listen intently for your premature declarations of faith, not to be impressed, but only to twist them with doubt and infuse them with fear. They feed voraciously on your words of anxiety and despair, using them as fuel to construct fortresses of negativity around your mind and spirit. Furthermore, there are people in your life, sometimes with genuinely good intentions, whose own deep-seated fears, limited perspectives, and carnal limitations would inadvertently cause them to speak words that could profoundly poison your tender dream if they heard even a whisper of it too soon. Dios, in His infinite wisdom, His boundless amour, and His perfect foresight, silences you not to halt your destiny's majestic progress, but to preserve it, to shield it from contamination, from premature judgment, and from the destructive forces of the enemy, until it has reached its full and glorious form, undeniably marked by His hand. Some victories, my friend, some of the most profound and sacred triumphs, must begin and ultimately conclude in the secret place, in the hallowed chambers of your heart, where only you and your Father in heaven are privileged witnesses. This is where the foundation is laid, where the blueprints are divinely etched, and where the power is amassed away from the clamor and the critical gaze of the world. It is in this profound solitude that true strength is cultivated. There is a holy strength, a divine power that is exquisitely forged in the furnace of restraint, a resilience born not of outward struggle, but of inner discipline. When the accusations fly like venomous arrows and insidious lies are spoken against your name, when every fiber within your human spirit screams to rise up and shout the unadulterated truth, Dios with a gentle yet firm voice whispers, "Be silent. I am your defense. I will fight this battle for you." When your heart is profoundly misunderstood, when your purest motives are cruelly questioned, when your amour is callously rejected, and you are tempted to offer 1,000 desperate explanations to vindicate yourself, Dios quietly but resolutely says, "Be silent. I know your heart completely. Your vindication comes from me." When those you trusted implicitly walk away, leaving an aching void of confusion and unbearable pain in their wake, and your first instinct is to chase after them, to plead your case, to beg for reconciliation, Dios gently yet powerfully commands, "Be silent. Let me restore what was lost. I am the God of recompense and restoration." Because your profound silence in these challenging moments is not the end of your story. It is, in fact, the dramatic and powerful opening act of a divine intervention, a celestial orchestration that will be infinitely more glorious and undeniably impactful than any outcome you could have ever orchestrated with your own limited words, your own strained explanations, or your own frantic efforts. You are not losing ground when you are quiet, beloved. On the contrary, you are actively building a foundation of unshakable trust, a spiritual bedrock upon which your future will firmly stand. You are aligning your entire spirit with the very rhythm of heaven, a sacred cadence where stillness communicates with more authority and profound power than the loudest noise on earth could ever hope to achieve. So let them think what they will. Let them draw their own flawed, short-sighted conclusions based on external appearances. Let them whisper their doubts and criticisms in the shadows of their ignorance. You have absolutely no need to defend yourself when the righteous judge of all the earth is your ultimate defender, your perfect advocate. You have no need to engage in fruitless, exhausting arguments when the truth, which is eternal and self-evident, will inevitably outlive every fleeting lie, every malicious slander, and every temporary falsehood. You do not need to explain the intricate complexities of your winding journey when Dios himself is poised to make your path perfectly straight and your divine purpose undeniably clear for all to see. Some miracles are so profoundly divine, so exquisitely sacred, so overwhelming in their majestic scope, that the only appropriate, truly faith-filled human response is to step back in reverent awe and allow Dios to speak through the magnificent, undeniable outcome that only He can produce. Tragically, too many souls have missed their ordained miracle because they simply could not endure the waiting period of silence. They stood poised at the very precipice of their breakthrough on the hallowed shores of their promised land. But the profound discomfort of the quiet, the agonizing suspense of the unknown, proved too much for their human spirit to bear. They impatiently opened their mouths and spoke words of doubt, words of fear, words of self-pity, which tragically gave the enemy a foothold, an open door to sow further confusion and despair. They foolishly shared the delicate sacred blueprint of Dios's meticulously crafted plan with people who were never meant to understand it, inviting mockery, criticism, and profound confusion into their sacred space. They exhausted themselves, draining their precious spiritual and emotional energy, trying desperately to defend their own honor, to vindicate their own name, when Dios was already meticulously preparing their public and undeniable vindication in the unseen realms. But that, by the grace of Dios, will not be your story. You, my friend, will be different. You will learn to wait patiently in the sanctuary of silence, in the hallowed stillness of His presence, because you have chosen to place your complete trust in the Dios who never slumbers, who never forgets His sacred promises, and whose timing is always impeccably perfect. If you believe with every fiber of your being that this is your season to wait in supernatural strength and unwavering faith, I invite you now to join your faith with thousands of others who are embracing this profound truth. Write Amen in the comments as a solemn declaration to seal this divine commitment in your spirit. Understand this crucial, life-altering truth. Divine silence is not passive. It is not an indication of inactivity or spiritual apathy. On the contrary, it is one of the most powerful, active, and spiritually strategic postures you can possibly assume in the face of adversity and uncertainty. It does not mean that nothing is happening in the invisible realm. In fact, it means that everything is happening, but it is happening under divine management, orchestrated by a wisdom that is infinitely far greater than our own limited human comprehension. Some of the most powerful, pivotal, and transformative moments in your entire existence will not come when you are shouting your triumphs from the mountaintop, but rather when you are humbly kneeling in the quiet valley, your lips sealed in profound trust, your heart wide open in surrender, allowing Dios to move mighty mountains on your behalf, effortlessly and majestically. Your silence, therefore, becomes a sacred sanctuary, a hallowed space where Dios can finally work unhindered, without the constant disruption of your fear, without the clumsy interference of your meticulously crafted human plans, and without the limitations of your well-intentioned but finite efforts. It is a living, breathing testimony, an undeniable declaration that you unequivocally believe His power is exponentially greater than any problem or challenge you could ever face. It is a profound act of faith, a silent roar that proclaims God's supremacy over every circumstance. When Dees calls you to be silent, he is not pushing you away or leaving you in isolation. Rather, he is extending an intimate invitation into a sacred partnership, a divine collaboration of monumental proportions. He is in essence leaning in and saying to you, my beloved child, you have fought long enough in your own strength. You have spoken enough words of defense and explanation. Now let me speak for you. Let me make the way where there seems to be no way. Let me shut the mouths of the roaring lions, just as I miraculously did for Daniel in the den. Let me silence your accusers with undeniable, irrefutable evidence. Let me show the world what I can do with a vessel who knows the profound power of waiting in reverent stillness, a vessel completely surrendered to my will. For it is truly those who learn the profound art of waiting in silent trust, those who master this divine discipline, who will ultimately rise in unprecedented strength, in an anointing that cannot be denied. They do not waste their precious spiritual energy trying desperately to prove their worth to people who are spiritually blind, whose eyes are veiled by carnal understanding. They do not exhaust their souls trying to explain their God-given vision to those who were never meant to catch it, whose spirits are not attuned to heavenly frequencies. Instead, they wisely conserve their faith. They fiercely protect their sacred promise. They guard their inner peace with a holy jealousy, understanding its priceless value in the spiritual battle. And yes, my friend, I know it is profoundly difficult. I would not stand here before you and pretend for a single moment that it is easy. It is without a doubt one of the hardest and most demanding disciplines of the Christian faith, a test of your deepest resolve. It is agonizing when you are profoundly misunderstood by those you amour, those whose good opinion you deeply cherish. It is an excruciatingly painful experience when people you hold dear walk away, actively misrepresenting your character and twisting your intention. It is a deep, lacerating wound to your soul when your good name is unjustly dragged through the mud of public opinion and slander, and everything within your human spirit yearns to rise up, to defend yourself, to shout the unvarnished truth from the rooftops for all to hear. But Dios, in his infinite wisdom and perfect justice, is not asking you to shout or to frantically defend yourself. He is asking you to trust him completely, to relinquish your need for immediate vindication. He is asking you to cultivate such profound confidence in his sovereignty, in his unwavering justice, and in his perfect timing that you are willing to let him be the one to reveal the truth, to set the record straight in his own perfectly orchestrated time. Because when Dios vindicates you, when he steps onto the stage of your life to defend your honor, it will be so utterly complete, so irrefutable, so undeniably powerful that even your most ardent enemies, your most vocal critics, will be forced to stand back in silent awe, their words silenced by the sheer, undeniable evidence that the mighty hand of Dios is truly upon your life. Therefore, do not fear the season of silence, my beloved. Do not curse the quiet days, the seemingly barren stretches when it feels as though heaven itself is brass, when your prayers seem to bounce off an unyielding ceiling. That silence, those moments of quietude, are sacred soil. They are the dramatic pause in the magnificent symphony of your life, occurring precisely before the grand crescendo of divine intervention. It is the deep, profound breath the universe takes, holding its anticipation, just before the miraculous birth of a new and glorious reality in your existence. It is the deep, profound stillness in the very air, charged with divine potential, just before the storm of blessings, meticulously prepared by heaven, breaks in your favor and utterly transforms your landscape. Some of the loudest, most resounding, and eternally significant victories in the entire history of our faith began not with a bang, but in absolute unnerving silence. I think of the 3 agonizing days the son of Dios lay entombed in a borrowed sepulchre. The world thought it was irrevocably over. His heartbroken disciples were scattered in fear, their hopes dashed, their faith shattered. The enemy, blinded by his temporary triumph, was celebrating his apparent ultimate victory over the King of Glory. But in the crushing, profound silence of that cold, dark tomb, the greatest miracle in all of history, the very cornerstone of our faith, was being meticulously prepared, divinely orchestrated by the Father. And when he miraculously rose from the dead, that victory spoke for itself, resounding through all eternity, requiring no human explanation or defense. When you truly learn to be silent in faith, when you master this divine art, you are not merely refraining from speech, you are actively giving Dios explicit permission, an open invitation to speak in power on your behalf. There will be distinct seasons in your life when you must learn to walk with sealed lips, deliberately choosing restraint, and with open hands, ready to receive the outpouring of His grace and provision. This is not because you have nothing valid or important to say. It is because you have consciously placed your complete, unreserved trust in the one who has already spoken the final authoritative word over your specific situation, a word that carries the weight of all creation. Dios does not need your lengthy explanations, for He already knows every intricate detail, every unspoken fear, every hidden desire of your heart. He does not need your eloquent arguments, for He is the righteous judge who has already ruled unequivocally in your favor, securing your victory long before the battle began. What He needs, what He desires above all else, is your complete and total surrender, a surrender not born of defeat, but of profound trust and audacious faith. And silence, my beloved, is one of the purest, most profound forms of this radical surrender. It is a living, breathing prayer that articulates what words cannot. Dios, I could speak, but I choose to trust you implicitly. I could fight with my own strength, but I choose to believe in your omnipotent power alone. I could try to explain myself, but I choose to patiently wait on your perfect sovereign timing. And Dios, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, honors that kind of radical, unwavering faith. He is profoundly moved by that level of spiritual discipline, for He knows in His infinite wisdom the magnitude of the supernatural power that He is about to release into your circumstances. He sees the magnificent miracle that is already meticulously orchestrated and actively on its way to you, traveling through time and space. And when it finally arrives, bursting forth in glorious manifestation, it will speak volumes, silencing every critic and astounding every observer. The very people who doubted your sanity, who questioned your choices, who whispered behind your back, will have no choice but to witness your salvation, your vindication, your breakthrough with their own eyes. The very situations that were maliciously designed by the enemy to break your spirit, to shatter your hope, to utterly destroy you, will miraculously become the foundational stones of your greatest testimony, a testament to God's redemptive power. But this can only happen, my friend, if you can learn the profound art of staying silent long enough to see it through to its glorious completion, to trust the divine process without premature interruption. Your silence, therefore, is not empty space. It is a sacred space filled with the furious, orchestrated activity of heaven itself. It is full of countless angels being dispatched on your behalf, moving mountains and clearing paths. It is full of prison doors in your life, being supernaturally unlocked by divine decree. It is full of favor being mysteriously arranged with people you have not even met yet, all working in concert for your ultimate good. But listen to me carefully. For this is a critical warning, a word of caution, born of spiritual insight. If you speak too soon, if you give voice to your fears or doubts prematurely, you can inadvertently disrupt the delicate divine flow. You can interfere with the celestial orchestration. If you act impulsively out of your own human timing, driven by impatience or anxiety, you may tragically miss the perfect, precise moment Diaz has ordained for your breakthrough. If you foolishly try to take matters into your own limited hands, driven by discomfort when the waiting becomes unbearable, you may tragically delay what was meant to come to you quickly, effortlessly, and with overwhelming ease. So I implore you, with all the spiritual authority granted to me, be silent. Not in a silence born of fear or defeat, but in an unwavering, audacious faith. Not in a silence that signals weakness or resignation, but in profound heavenly wisdom. Not in a silence of despair or capitulation, but in glorious divine expectation. Because something profound is coming for you. Something monumental is shifting in the unseen realm. A seismic shift in your favor. Something breathtaking is being orchestrated on your behalf, meticulously designed and so magnificent, so intricately detailed, that you could not have planned it yourself even if you had 1,000 years and infinite resources. But it requires your stillness. It demands your restraint. It necessitates your ability to patiently sit in the awesome presence of Dios and let him do what only he, in his omnipotence, can do. Some of you listening to my voice right now have been praying for something immense, something truly life-altering, a miracle that seems beyond all human possibility, a healing that doctors have long given up on, declaring it irreversible. A restoration in a family that seems hopelessly broken beyond repair, shattered into irreparable pieces. A financial breakthrough that defies all earthly economic logic. A sudden and miraculous provision. And I am here to tell you with absolute certainty that Diaz has heard every single one of those heartfelt prayers. He has not missed a single tear that has fallen from your eyes in secret. But now, after hearing your fervent cries, his divine instruction for you is changing. He is now, with a profound intimacy, saying, "My child, be quiet. Let me work. Step back and allow me to finish the masterpiece I have already started in your life. Stay silent, filled with faith, while I diligently build the miracle that is destined for you." Your job, beloved, is no longer to announce it to the world, to seek validation or garner support. Your primary job now is to prepare your heart to receive it, to cultivate a spirit of readiness and open expectation. Your sacred responsibility is to remain steadfast in the secret place with him, holding fast to your inner peace, keeping your mouth shut in obedient trust, and your heart wide open to receive his perfect will, his flawless timing, and his overflowing provision. This is a profound transition in your spiritual journey, from active supplication to passive yet powerful receptivity. Because the more silent you become on the outside, the louder DOLs will be allowed to speak through the final undeniable outcome, a testimony that resonates with divine authority. The more you consciously resist that fleshly, anxious urge to speak prematurely, to seek fleeting validation from others, to prematurely unveil the sacred, the more glorious, the more undeniable, the more impacting your testimony will be when the divinely appointed time is finally right. And when it happens, and believe me, with God as your witness, it will happen. It will not require an introduction, a justification, or a human defense. The miracle itself will be its own magnificent announcement, a trumpet blast from heaven. The blessing will be its own irrefutable defense, undeniable evidence of God's favor. The sheer, raw, unadulterated power of Dios will be so self-evident, so unmistakably present, that even the most hardened doubters and cynical observers will fall silent in the face of it, humbled and awestruck. You do not have to fight for what Dios has already promised you in his infallible word, sealed by his divine oath. You do not have to scream for what his boundless amour has already secured for you at Calvary, purchased with the precious blood of his Son. Be silent, my beloved, and let the undeniable evidence speak for itself. Be silent, and let the glorious harvest reveal the profound quality of the seed that was planted in secret, watered by your quiet trust. The truth is, my friend, that the ones who are truly the most powerful in the eternal kingdom of Dios are not necessarily the loudest ones in the room, constantly vying for attention or making their presence known through volume. They are not the ones who constantly boast of their faith or announce their every strategic move to the world. No, the truly powerful, the most effective, are the most obedient. They have cultivated the divine wisdom to discern precisely when to speak with boldness and conviction, and crucially, when to be silent with profound reverence, recognizing the sacredness of the moment. They understand the sacred rhythm of Dios's impeccable timing, a celestial cadence that governs all of creation, and they have consciously surrendered their own chaotic, hurried pace to his perfect, deliberate beat. When you learn to synchronize your spirit with that heavenly rhythm, you will begin to walk in a peace that cannot be shaken, disturbed, or stolen by any earthly circumstances, no matter how tumultuous. And you will operate in a power that cannot be stopped or thwarted by any hellish opposition, no matter how fierce or cunning. So please, my beloved, do not despise the season of silence. Do not try to rush out of it, impatiently seeking an early exit. Instead, embrace it wholeheartedly. Honor it as a holy, consecrated time, a sacred chamber of transformation, because in that silence, Dios is actively building something eternal in you, something of lasting value. In that stillness, he is meticulously preparing something unshakable for you, a foundation that will withstand any storm. When the appointed time finally arrives, when the heavens declare it to be so, your long-held silence will break forth into a magnificent symphony of celebration, a joyous declaration of victory. Your patient stillness will explode into an undeniable demonstration of supernatural blessing, astonishing all who witness it. Your obedient, patient waiting will be richly rewarded with wonders that will leave you absolutely breathless, marveling at the goodness of God. When Dios calls you into a season of silence, he is not pushing you away from his presence. He is in fact drawing you deeper into the intimate chambers of his very heart. He is inviting you into a new profound level of intimacy, a divine closeness, where the incessant noise of the world, its clamor and distractions, finally fades away into glorious insignificance, and only his gentle, loving whisper remains, a sound that resonates with eternal truth. It is in that sacred silence that your soul becomes acutely attuned to heavenly frequencies, to spiritual wavelengths that others, caught in the world's din, cannot perceive or comprehend. Your spiritual ears begin to hear not the shifting opinions of fallible men, nor the fleeting trends of the day, but the unchanging eternal directives of heaven, guiding your every step. And in that profound silence, your spirit grows immeasurably strong, not through speaking your own plans, but through listening intently with a surrendered heart to the only voice that truly matters, the voice of your Heavenly Father. Dios is never in a hurry, for he is outside of time, dwelling in eternity. His omnipotent power is not frantic or chaotic, it is deliberate, purposeful, and perfectly ordered. His perfect timing is not dictated or influenced by your anxiety, nor by the world's demanding deadlines and artificial pressures. Dios moves with deliberate purpose, with divine precision, and with a profound wisdom that is utterly beyond our limited human comprehension. Sometimes his silence, his seeming inaction, is the clearest, most profound signal that he is orchestrating something far more complex, more magnificent, and more wonderful than your current finite understanding can possibly grasp. While you, in your human frailty, are worried and fretting about how things appear on the superficial surface, Dios is working deep underground, beneath the visible reality, meticulously aligning circumstances you know absolutely nothing about. He is subtly shifting the hearts of people you have yet to meet, orchestrating divine connections, and precisely preparing the exact perfect moment when the curtain will majestically rise, and His glory will be undeniably revealed in your life. But until that divinely appointed moment, He instructs you to hold your tongue, to guard your words, not because you are voiceless or insignificant, but because your voice is being preserved, consecrated for a greater, more glorious proclamation that is yet to come, a testimony that will echo through the ages. There is a profound, undeniable strength in restraint, a quiet power that speaks louder than any boast. There is a resounding, eternal victory in waiting patiently upon the Lord, trusting in His perfect timing. Deus profoundly honors the soul who trusts His pace more than they trust their own churning emotions, their own anxious impulses. When you feel completely surrounded by your enemies, when you feel overlooked and undervalued by your peers, when your spirit is weary from fighting unseen battles that no one else sees or understands, do not break your holy silence with words of fear, frustration, or despair. Instead, speak only to Dios in the intimate sanctuary of prayer. Let your soul cry out to Him in the quiet, consecrated chambers of your heart, not in the public noise of panic or complaint. Because Dios hears what no human ear can possibly catch, He discerns the depths of your spirit. He listens intently to the silent prayers, the ones that have no words, the ones that are composed only of groans, of tears, and of unspoken hopes and desires. He intimately understands the profound language of a surrendered heart, a heart that trusts Him implicitly, and that, my beloved, is the language that moves Him to mighty transformative action. Every soul that joins this ministry with a like or a subscription strengthens the wall of faith we are building together, a testament to God's unwavering power. If this word has found you today, it is not by chance, it is a divine appointment. Join this congregation to continue receiving the fresh bread of life that Dios has specifically for you, a nourishment for your soul. Do you now understand truly and deeply why Dios insists on this crucial, sometimes arduous period of silence before the miracle? Because words possess a potent, undeniable power, a power to either create or destruct, to build up or tear down, to bless or to curse. In moments of intense testing, when your faith is stretched thin, when your resolve is severely challenged, careless, ill-timed words can tragically sabotage the divine timing, disrupting God's perfect plan. You might inadvertently confess doubt at the very moment you should be boldly declaring your unwavering trust. You might speak words that invite a spirit of negativity, anxiety, and defeat into your sacred atmosphere when you were divinely meant to be guarding it with a steadfast faith, saturating it with the very presence of God. You might unwittingly release fear and apprehension into your environment when a silent, steadfast faith was precisely what was supposed to be saturating the room, preparing the spiritual way for Dios to move in miraculous power. That is why this silence is not mere avoidance or passive waiting. It is a rigorous, demanding spiritual discipline. It is a strategic stillness, a tactical pause in the spiritual battle. It is the holy act of guarding, consecrating, and cultivating the very atmosphere in which your miracle is destined to be divinely born and majestically brought forth. Dios is not asking you to pretend that everything is fine when it clearly is not. He is not demanding a false positivity that denies the painful reality of your circumstances. He is asking you to place your complete trust in a higher reality, a reality that is far more profound and eternal than the one you can see with your natural eyes. The unseen yet utterly real reality of His sovereign kingdom and His unfailing promises. He is asking you to stop trying to manage the outcome, to cease your frantic efforts to control every variable, and to start surrendering completely to His supreme authority and perfect will. Because your silence is not an act of ignorance or a lack of understanding, it is in its deepest essence an act of profound recognition. It is the humble recognition that Dose is infinitely wiser, infinitely more capable, and infinitely more strategic than your best laid plans, your most brilliant strategies. It is the profound recognition that your personal insight is inherently limited, constrained by your human perspective, but His vision for your life is eternal, perfect, and all-encompassing. And when you consciously choose to be silent, you are proclaiming with your entire being, with every fiber of your surrendered soul, I do not need to know everything because I am in an intimate, trusting relationship with the one who does know everything, the omniscient God. There are sacred moments in your life when your silence becomes your most formidable, impenetrable shield, a divine protection against the relentless assaults of the enemy. It is a shield against spiritual warfare that Dayus never intended for you to fight in your own strength, with your own words. There are battles that are not won by engaging in direct confrontation, by arguing or justifying, but by remaining steadfastly still, firmly anchored under His omnipotent protection, trusting Him to fight on your behalf. Your premature explanations, your frantic defenses, would only feed a carnal curiosity in others, a superficial interest that Dayus never intended for them to have regarding your sacred personal journey with Him. Some things, my friend, are meant to be carried in the hallowed chambers of silence precisely because they are too holy, too delicate in their formative stages, to be mishandled by careless ears, by cynical minds, or judged by unanointed hearts that lack spiritual discernment. Dios is saying to you today, with profound love and protection, let me conceal you for a season, hide you in the shadow of my wings. Let me preserve this precious promise within you for the right, divinely appointed time. And if you will obey me, if you will faithfully stay silent when everything in your anxious flesh screams to speak, you will witness a miracle, a manifestation of my power that no human power could ever manufacture, no human mind could ever have conceived, and no human words could ever adequately describe. Your season of silence is not a meaningless pause in your grand story. It is in fact a vital, essential part of the divine plot, intricately woven into the tapestry of your destiny. It is a crucial chapter being written with invisible ink, a sacred narrative that will soon be revealed in breathtaking, vibrant color under the radiant light of Dios's perfect timing and glorious manifestation. You may not perceive it now in the midst of your quietude, but this silence is truly sacred soil. It is the fertile ground where the roots of your faith grow deep enough, strong enough, and resilient enough to withstand any future storms, any trials, any adversities that may come your way. It is where your character is meticulously refined and purified in the intense fire of patience, where dross is burned away and gold emerges. It is where your spirit is anchored not in the shifting sands of circumstances, nor in the fleeting opinions of men, but firmly, unshakably, in the unchanging eternal character of Dios Himself. When Dios keeps you quiet, when He draws you into a season of stillness, it is not a sign of His rejection or His disapproval. It is unequivocally the evidence of your profound preparation. You are being rigorously trained to carry a weighty anointing, a glory that cannot be tainted or polluted by the incessant noise and moral decay of this fallen world. This, my beloved, is a divine training ground, a crucible for champions of faith, forging spiritual warriors in the silence. Do not ever confuse silence with stagnation, with a lack of progress or movement. Just because you do not perceive outward visible movement in your circumstances does not mean there is no inward profound progress taking place. does some of his most powerful, most transformative, and most foundational work in the dark, in the quiet, in the hidden places unseen by the human eye, away from the clamor of external validation. Look at his magnificent creation. The mighty galaxies turn gracefully in the heavens in perfect, majestic silence, their cosmic dance orchestrated without a sound. The earth rotates silently on its axis, a perfect testament to divine order. Your own heart, the very engine of your physical body, beats faithfully, ceaselessly without shouting its existence. The most essential life-sustaining forces in the entire universe operate without noise, without fanfare. So it is with the profound work of Dios in your life. His greatest acts, his most monumental breakthroughs, often come wrapped in a profound anticipatory silence, building in intensity until the precise moment they explode into undeniable glorious reality, astonishing all who witness them. He is not holding you back from your destiny. On the contrary, he is strategically pushing you forward, moving you into your purpose without the burden and distraction of unnecessary noise, without the hindrance of external interference. He may be keeping you quiet right now, in this precise season, so that he can effectively shield your precious vision from the discouraging words of others, from the seeds of doubt they might inadvertently sow. He is protecting your fragile, nascent growth from the harsh, destructive winds of criticism, from the premature exposure to judgment. He is diligently preparing your breakthrough in a consecrated chamber of stillness, a sacred space far removed from the prying, often cynical eyes of the world, where his work can be unhindered. Think of your silence as your ark, like the one Noah meticulously built in obedience to God's command. It is the sacred, divinely protected place where you are sealed off, completely insulated from the overwhelming flood of confusion, from negative opinions, and from the insidious lies of the enemy that rage relentlessly in the world outside your sanctuary. Dios himself shuts the door to this ark of silence, not to isolate you in punishment, or to abandon you to despair, but to lovingly preserve you for a magnificent purpose, a glorious destiny that awaits. And when the rains of testing finally stop, when the waters of adversity recede, when the storm passes, you will step out of that ark of silence into a new world, a new territory, refreshed, renewed, profoundly strengthened, and perfectly ready for the glorious destiny he has meticulously prepared for you, a destiny richer than you can imagine. Dios is not in the business of orchestrating empty, pointless silences. Every quiet season he ordains, every period of stillness he allows, has a specific, profound, and divine purpose, perfectly aligned with his eternal plan. Every unanswered question that weighs on your heart, every restrained word you choose not to speak, every withheld explanation you long to give, it all serves a masterful plan that is infinitely greater, more intricate, and more profound than you can currently imagine with your finite mind. You may not fully understand it today, and you may not grasp its entirety tomorrow, but one day, when the miracle unfolds in all its breathtaking glory, when the full tapestry is revealed, you will look back with tears of overwhelming gratitude, and you will thank Dios from the depths of your being that he taught you the holy, transforming discipline of holding your peace. You will realize with a profound clarity that pierces through all doubt, that if you had spoken too soon, if you had foolishly exposed the tender vision too early, if you had desperately tried to explain what only heaven could interpret and orchestrate, you might have tragically forfeited the very blessing that was destined to be yours from the very foundation of the world, a blessing reserved for your faithful silence. You must also profoundly understand that while Dios is actively working on your situation, meticulously arranging circumstances and moving mountains, he is simultaneously and perhaps even more profoundly working in you. This period of silence is not just about external outcomes, it is a period of intense molding of spiritual formation. It is teaching you the profound strength that is found only in stillness, the unwavering courage that is exquisitely required for complete and total surrender, and the divine wisdom that comes from disciplined restraint. You are learning through this arduous but ultimately rewarding process that not every accusation deserves a frantic response, not every battle requires your personal engagement, not every challenging situation necessitates your words, your explanations, or your defense. Sometimes, the most powerful, the wisest, and indeed, the most faith-filled thing you can possibly say is nothing at all. Creating a consecrated space, an open invitation for Dios to be the one who responds with fire from heaven, with unmistakable power. His divine response, his perfect vindication, will always be infinitely more effective, more resounding, and more final than yours could ever hope to be. Therefore, let your quiet confidence in him, your unwavering trust, become your impenetrable shield, your unshakable fortress against all the arrows of the enemy and the doubts of the world. Even when they question your silence, even when they mock your stillness, even when they relentlessly pressure you to speak, to justify, and to defend yourself, remain steadfastly grounded in him, firmly anchored in his presence. Trust with an unyielding conviction that Dios sees the entire panoramic picture, including the hidden things, the intricate details that others cannot possibly see or comprehend. Trust that he is actively building a testimony in your life, a masterpiece of his grace that will require no human introduction or defense, for it will speak for itself. Trust that what he has promised you in the quiet, intimate place of prayer will undeniably come to pass in the bright public light of day for all to witness. And when it does, those who laughed at your silence, those who doubted your faith, will be utterly silenced by your undeniable results, by the sheer power of God's manifestation. They will be silenced by the undeniable, irrefutable evidence of Dios's profound favor and anointing upon your life. Walk through your storm, therefore, with a supernatural peace that transcends all earthly understanding, knowing deep within your soul that you are firmly anchored in the omnipotent presence of the Almighty. You have absolutely no need to shout or strive when all of heaven is already roaring in your defense, fighting your battles for you. In Dios's perfect sovereign time, the season of silence will unequivocally come to an end. In his divinely appointed time, the voice of Dios will thunder on your behalf, reverberating through the heavens and the earth, declaring your vindication. In his perfect time, the miracle you have been quietly waiting for will manifest in a breathtaking, glorious fashion, astonishing all who witness it. And when that magnificent day comes, your quiet, obedient silence will be revealed for what it truly was, the very seed that unlocked the boundless power of heaven, the key that opened doors no man could shut. So hold fast to your faith, my beloved. Do not break the sacred silence, do not interrupt the divine process just to satisfy the temporary anxieties of your restless flesh, or to appease the fleeting curiosity of others. Do not disrupt the divine orchestration just to ease your short-term emotional discomfort, or to escape the perceived awkwardness of waiting. There is a magnificent eternal reward reserved specifically for those who learn to wait upon the Lord quietly, faithfully, and fully surrendered to his perfect will, understanding that his ways are higher than their ways. When the appointed time finally arrives, your period of silence will dramatically turn into a triumphant song of deliverance. Your season of stillness will erupt into a powerful demonstration of supernatural strength and divine favor. Your private trust, cultivated in the secret place, will produce a public breakthrough so undeniable that all will know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it was not your words that brought the victory, but your holy, radical surrender to the Almighty. There comes a time when this sacred silence becomes your greatest offensive weapon, a strategic advantage in the spiritual battle. It is a shield, not just from the chaos and noise around you, but from the intricate traps and cunning snares the enemy meticulously sets for you up ahead, designed to ensnare your soul. Your adversary, the devil, thrives on your reactions, on your impulsive responses. He is a diligent student of your soul, observing your vulnerabilities. He listens closely to your words of panic. He feeds voraciously on your impatience, and he expertly seeks to twist your own words against you, to build a compelling case of accusation in your own mind, eroding your confidence. But when you become truly silent, rooted and grounded in the unshakable presence of Dios, you effectively strip the enemy of his primary, most potent weapon, your reactive speech. You profoundly confuse the entire camp of darkness, for they thrive on noise, on chaos, on frantic activity. They cannot discern what you are thinking, what you are planning, or most critically, what you are expecting from your DOs. Your silence, therefore, frustrates the enemy because it signals a profound strategic shift in your spiritual posture. You are no longer reacting to him, no longer engaging him on his terms. You are actively, patiently, and powerfully waiting on DOs, trusting his intervention. There is a powerful stillness that is born not of laziness, apathy, or spiritual indifference, but of audacious, unyielding boldness, a quiet confidence that emanates from deep within your spirit. It is the stillness of a soul who has consciously placed their deepest concerns, their most pressing burdens, into the capable hands of Dios, and has made a resolute decision not to pick them back up again in worry, in anxiety, or in doubt. There is immense strength, a quiet heroism in sitting down in the presence of the Lord when every fiber of your being, every anxious impulse wants to rush ahead, to frantically fix things in your own strength and timing. There is profound divine wisdom in keeping quiet when your flesh cries out to scream, to justify itself, to demand recognition, and there is a supernatural, explosive power that is released when you truly trust that the one who formed the countless stars in the heavens and named each one, the creator of the vast cosmos, is perfectly capable of handling the intricate, seemingly overwhelming details of your life, orchestrating them for your ultimate good and his eternal glory. Dios is not seeking those who panic in the waiting room of life. He is seeking those who learn to worship, to trust, to surrender in the pause, knowing that he is actively working on their behalf. Let me ask you again, with all seriousness, do you now know with absolute conviction why Dios wants you to be profoundly silent before the miracle manifests? Because he wants to ensure beyond any shadow of a doubt that you and absolutely everyone watching you, your critics, your friends, your family, your community, recognize that he alone is the undeniable source of the blessing. Not your clever words, not your human wisdom, not your extensive network of influential contacts, not your natural charisma, nor your diligent efforts, only Dios. He profoundly desires for your testimony to be utterly pure, completely free from the contamination of human pride, free from the fingerprints of your own strenuous efforts, so that his glory alone may be revealed. So that when the blessing finally comes, when the miracle bursts forth in its majestic fullness, it will be undeniably marked by the omnipotent power and unmistakable presence of the Almighty, and no man, including yourself, will be able to take even an ounce of the credit, to claim any part of the triumph for themselves. The silence, therefore, is not a punishment or a deprivation. It is a profound process of purification, a divine cleansing. It is the holy ground where your motives are meticulously refined, where your desires are rigorously tested, and where your heart is brought into perfect, beautiful alignment with his divine will, becoming a vessel fit for his glory. In the crucible of silence, you are gradually stripped of your distractions, your illusions, and your pervasive pride. You are brought face to face with the stark yet profoundly liberating reality that no matter how loud the world gets, no matter how insistent its demands, the only voice that truly matters, the only sound that carries eternal weight, is the still, small voice of Dios, speaking directly to your spirit. Some people simply cannot handle silence. They have tragically become addicted to noise, to external validation. They constantly seek affirmation from others. They chase the fleeting applause of the crowd, needing someone to always be agreeing with them in order to feel secure, to feel justified. But when Dios, in his infinite wisdom, takes you into the silent place, into the wilderness of quietude, he performs a deep, necessary, and sometimes painful surgery on your very soul. He severs your unhealthy dependence on external affirmation, detaching your inner peace from people's fickle approval. He teaches you to live and thrive solely on the pure, undiluted sound of his voice alone, the voice that speaks creation into existence. And that kind of profound spiritual transformation, that level of liberation, cannot be bought with money, nor can it be borrowed from another. It can only be learned in the sacred stillness, in the intimate communion with your Dios. You see, my friend, when you learn to truly stay silent in the presence of God, you are not just passively avoiding speaking, you are consciously tuning your spirit in. You are actively attuning yourself to hear the divine instructions, the subtle nudges, the profound revelations that only come in the stillness, in the absence of noise. There are specific assignments Dios will only whisper, never shout, because they require a depth of discernment that only silence can provide. There are crucial, life-altering directions he gives only to the soul that is quiet enough, humble enough, and receptive enough to truly receive them. If your life is perpetually filled with the constant noise of complaining, of venting frustrations, of over-explaining yourself, and of anxious overthinking, you will inevitably miss the subtle, gentle nudge of the Holy Spirit that is meant to shift your entire destiny, to pivot you onto a new, glorious path. But in silence, your spiritual senses become exquisitely sharp, finely tuned. You begin to discern what others, caught in the clamor, tragically overlook. You begin to walk not by carnal reaction, by impulsive emotion, but by divine revelation, by the unerring guidance of the Spirit. And this, my friend, is a profound truth many in our hurried, noisy world will sadly miss to their own detriment. If you have been found by this word today, do not let it go. Cling to it with all your heart. Write "I will trust" in the comments as a solemn declaration of your unwavering commitment to this holy transformative process. Not everyone, my beloved, is meant to understand what Dios is doing in your life, especially in its formative stages. Some things are so holy, so delicate, so divinely tender in their formative stages that sharing them too soon can cause irreparable spiritual damage, a premature exposure that can kill the seed of promise. There is a profound reason the ancient book of Proverbs, chapter 25, verse 2, tells us that it is the glory of Dios to conceal a matter, to hold certain truths in sacred trust. Your silence, therefore, becomes a protective covering, a divine veil, for that which is sacred, for that which is growing in secret. When you consciously choose to keep quiet, you preserve the anointing, you protect the divine process from interference, you shield the precious seed of promise from being devoured by the birds of the air, as Jesus so wisely taught in the parable of the sower. Do not let the relentless pressure of others, their impatience, their curiosity, or their demands force your voice to speak before Dios himself gives you the divine release to do so. Let the world assume what it will. Let them question your choices. Let them even laugh at your quietude, dismissing it as weakness. Because in the end, my friend, It will not be your eloquent arguments that convince them. It will be the undeniable, majestic manifestation of what Dios has miraculously done in your sight, a testimony so powerful it silences all critics. There is a moment coming for you, if you remain faithful and steadfast, in this challenging season of quiet, when your silence will burst forth into a result so clear, so loud, so irrefutable, so undeniably from heaven, that even your most hardened critics will fall silent in absolute astonishment, humbled by the power of God. That, my beloved, is the profound power of letting Dios handle what your mouth desperately wants to manage, what your flesh frantically yearns to control. And in that stillness, that season of quiet waiting, your intimate relationship with Dios deepens exponentially, reaching new profound levels of communion. You begin to experience not just what He does in your life, but more profoundly, who He is in His immutable character. You no longer serve Dios merely for the magnificent miracles He can provide, for the blessings He bestows. You serve Him because you have come to intimately trust His character, His goodness, His faithfulness, even when there is no visible evidence of His work around you, even when circumstances seem to contradict His promises. That, my beloved, is where true spiritual maturity, true spiritual power unequivocally begin. It is not found in praising Dios only after the blessing has arrived, but in being able to be silent, to wait patiently, and to trust Him implicitly before the blessing arrives, knowing with every fiber of your being that He is actively, powerfully working on your behalf. Silence also allows Dios to expose the hidden things in your own heart, the unaddressed issues, the areas needing healing, things that often cannot be seen or confronted in the noise and distraction of a busy life. Sometimes it is precisely in your quietest season, in your moments of deepest stillness, that your most profound, most transformative healing takes place. Healing of old wounds, of past traumas, of spiritual baggage. You begin to confront yourself with brutal honesty. You realize how much of your precious life was spent trying desperately to force doors open that Dios had clearly closed for your protection. You see how often you were frantically trying to fix what only Dios, in His redemptive power, could truly redeem and restore. In the silence, you stop talking to everyone else about your problems, seeking human solutions and sympathy, and you finally start talking to Dios in a way that is raw, real, vulnerable, and reverent. And that authentic, unhindered communion, born of silence and intimacy, becomes your secret weapon, your most potent spiritual asset. You will be able to enter rooms filled with turmoil, with chaos, with spiritual warfare, with an unshakable calm, a supernatural peace, because you have already cried out your deepest fears, your most agonizing doubts, in the secret place with Him. You will walk with a quiet confidence, an inner strength, not because life is suddenly perfect or without challenges, but because you are no longer desperately trying to control it, to manipulate every outcome. You are finally letting Dios be Dios, fully yielding to His sovereignty. And when you truly do that, a peace that surpasses all human understanding will miraculously reign in your heart, anchoring your soul. Even if chaos, storms, and confusion rage relentlessly around your life, you do not need to defend what Dios is building in secret, what He is carefully crafting behind the scenes. You do not need to announce what He is preparing in the shadows, veiled from human eyes. Your only sacred task is to stay aligned with Him, to stay quiet before Him in humble trust, and to stay faithful to Him. Even when the path is unclear, there is more power, more transformative energy in one day of quiet, consistent obedience than in a lifetime of loud, inconsistent opinions, of frantic, self-serving actions. When you honor DOs in the waiting, when you faithfully embrace the season of silence, you are sowing priceless seeds into a spiritual harvest that no enemy in hell can block, and no circumstance on earth can prevent or diminish. And the day will surely come, as surely as the sun rises, when everything you remained silent about, every promise you held tightly in your heart, every tear you cried in secret will be answered not with an explanation or a justification, but with glorious, undeniable, and overwhelming evidence of God's miraculous power. There is a sacred mystery in the profound way Dios works, a divine methodology that consistently defies all human logic and expectation. We are living in an age that is relentlessly obsessed with instant results, with constant immediate communication, and with the quick validation that comes from public approval and social media engagement. But our Dios is not bound by the frantic, chaotic noise of this world, nor is he confined by its fleeting trends. In fact, he is often profoundly drawn to the opposite, to the deep, profound stillness of a trusting heart, a heart that waits patiently on him. While the world shouts frantically for immediate answers, demanding quick fixes and instant gratification, Dios whispers his deepest secrets, his most intimate plans to the soul that has learned the sacred art of waiting in silence, attuned to his voice alone. While others are consumed by paralyzing panic in the face of uncertainty and the unknown, those who truly know their Dios, those who have cultivated this sacred stillness, walk quietly and confidently through the valley of the shadow of death, knowing that silence, when faithfully placed in the omnipotent hands of the Almighty, is never empty, never unproductive. It is profound preparation, it is divine strategy, it is raw, celestial power wrapped in the beautiful, humble garment of quiet, radical surrender, a force the enemy cannot comprehend. Silence is not the absence of faith, my friend. It is, in its highest and purest form, the ultimate, most profound expression of it. When you can keep quiet in the middle of a raging, tumultuous storm, when you can resist the overwhelming, insistent urge to speak prematurely before Dios has finished what he is actively doing, when you can stand firm, anchored in hope, in the midst of a long, agonizing delay without doubting his active presence or his unfailing goodness, you are walking in a dimension of spiritual maturity, a level of profound trust that very few people on this earth will ever reach or comprehend. Because true silence is not just the mere absence of speech or external noise, it is the absolute fullness of unwavering trust. It is the soul's ultimate declaration, a resounding affirmation that echoes through the heavens. Dios, even if I do not understand it, I believe you are profoundly good and always working for my good. Even if I do not see the way forward, even if the path is completely obscured, I know you are sovereignly leading me with perfect precision. Even if I do not hear the answer I want, even if my prayers seem to go unanswered, I know with absolute certainty that you have already spoken the final authoritative word into existence, and your word will prevail. In this world, we are rigorously trained to announce our every step, to publicly promote our every decision, to gather a committee of approval, seeking validation from others before we even dare to begin any significant undertaking. But when Dios places a holy vision, a sacred calling, inside your spirit, he often requires for its protection and maturation that you conceal it, that you guard it in silence until it has matured into strength, into resilience, into an undeniable reality. You are not hiding it out of fear, out of timidity, or out of a lack of courage. You are guarding it out of profound honor and reverence for its divine origin. You are protecting what is holy, what is consecrated, from being mishandled or profaned by what is carnal, by what is spiritually undiscerning, by what is worldly. Because when something from Dios is in its nascent seed form, it is at its most vulnerable, its most delicate. And Dios, like a wise, meticulous gardener who understands the intricacies of growth, gently says, "Let me water it in the silence of your intimate communion with me. Let me grow it in the secret, hidden place of your heart, away from prying eyes. Let me meticulously prepare the soil of circumstances, aligning all things, before you shout to the world what I have profoundly begun in you, before you unveil the masterpiece." When you choose to remain silent in obedience, my beloved, you are not disengaged from life, nor are you being passive. On the contrary, you are actively aligning yourself with a deeper, more powerful, more eternal current, the very flow of divine purpose. You are consciously stepping into the sacred rhythm of patience, of trust, and of God's perfect timing. You are no longer frantically reacting to the ever-changing noise of the world, to its fickle demands and fleeting opinions. You are moving in perfect sync with the steady, unwavering heartbeat of heaven itself. And when you learn to move with Dios, to surrender your pace to His, you discover that you do not need to rush, to strive, to force outcomes. You do not need to explain yourself relentlessly. You do not need to convince others of your vision. Time itself, which often feels like an enemy, like a relentless foe, becomes your devoted ally, your faithful servant, because time in the omnipotent hands of Dios becomes a powerful instrument, a catalyst for your destiny. It works tirelessly for you, not against you, meticulously bringing all things to pass in their beautiful, perfectly appointed season, unveiling His plan in breathtaking order. Let this profound truth anchor your soul today, providing an unshakable peace. Some of you listening to my voice right now are being tested, rigorously tried, in the waiting room of silence. You are sitting in that difficult, uncomfortable, liminal space between the powerful promise Deus gave you and its ultimate glorious fulfillment. And everything in your anxious flesh, every human impulse wants to speak, to break the silence. You want to justify yourself to others, to defend your integrity. You want to rush the outcome, to accelerate the divine timetable. You want to declare as done what has not yet manifested in the natural realm, impatiently grasping for control. But hear this word with the full, unwavering authority of spiritual truth. If you will wait upon Deus in obedient, unwavering silence, you will be preserved, divinely protected, and strategically positioned in ways that the loud, the arrogant, the impulsive, and the impatient will never comprehend, never experience. Let them question your stillness. Let them misinterpret your quietness, mistaking it for weakness. Let them assume you have nothing profound to say, that you lack courage. Because soon, my friend, very soon, the undeniable fruit of your life, the glorious manifestation of God's promises, will speak with a voice louder, more authoritative, and more irrefutable than anything you could have ever said with your own words. And in that magnificent moment of vindication, your silence will be shown for what it truly was. It was not silence born of weakness, of fear, or of resignation, but silence born of radical obedience, of profound faith, of unwavering trust in God's perfect plan. It was not fear that kept you quiet. It was profound reverence for Dia's sacred process, for His divine timing. You were not mute, nor were you passive. You were listening intently, diligently, with a surrendered heart. And the one who learns to listen in silence, who cultivates this sacred spiritual discipline, is the one who will be entrusted with the deepest secrets of heaven, with the most profound revelations of God's heart. Dios does not reveal His deepest, most intimate plans, His most precious secrets, in the clamor of the crowd or amidst the noise and distractions of a busy life. He speaks in the stillness, in the quietude, to the one who intentionally turns off the noise of the world, who shuts the door to their room, who quiets their own soul before him, and humbly says, Dios, I do not need the world's noise, I need your guidance, I need your voice alone. That is the soul Dios will fill to overflowing with his spirit, with his wisdom, with his power. That is the life Dios will use mightily for his glory, making an eternal impact that transcends human understanding. You must learn to trust that silence is not a void, it is in fact a holy vessel. It is a sacred container that holds the precious promises of God, the divine instructions, and the gentle whispers of Dios that carry more weight, more authority, and more power than the loudest human voice could ever possess. When Dios instructed Joshua and the Israelites to march around the formidable walls of Jericho for 7 days without speaking a single word, without uttering a sound, it was not because they lacked courage or battle strategy. It was a divine, counterintuitive strategy, meticulously designed by God himself. Dios was teaching them, and by extension teaching us, his children, that sometimes the miracle does not come when you shout your demands or boast of your strength. It comes when you are willing to walk in disciplined, obedient silence, trusting implicitly that the simple, profound command of Dios is greater, more powerful, and more effective than your human need to be understood, to justify yourself, or to feel like you are actively doing something dramatic. Their silent, obedient perseverance is precisely what brought the mighty, impregnable walls of Jericho crashing down into dust, a testament to God's power through silence. There will be moments in your life, profound spiritual junctures, when your silence will be your only, most formidable shield from utter destruction, from the enemy's most cunning ploys. If you speak too soon, if you reveal your heart prematurely, you may inadvertently expose the divine blueprint, the sacred plan, to those who are strategically assigned by the enemy to sabotage it, to derail your destiny. If you share your testimony too early, before it is fully complete, before it has matured into its fullness, you may allow the poison of doubt, of fear, of discouragement to subtly enter your own heart through the well-meaning but fearful voice of others, eroding your faith. But if you will patiently wait, if you will faithfully hold your peace, if you will remain steadfastly silent under the covering of Dios's omnipresent protective presence, he will bring you out into a victory so glorious, so undeniable, so utterly complete, that no words will be needed. The miracle itself will declare its own divine origin, its heavenly source. The blessing will testify, loudly and clearly, of its celestial source, its supernatural provision. Do not, I implore you, underestimate the profound value of that unseen silent growth that is taking place within you. What you sow in silence, what you cultivate in quiet trust, you will most assuredly reap in glorious public manifestation. And now, beloved soul, hear this final truth with all the weight, the gravity, and the profound reverence it unequivocally deserves. Silence is not the absence of faith. No, in its highest, purest, most mature form, it is the ultimate, most profound expression of it. When you consciously choose to close your mouth and open your heart completely to Dios's perfect timing, when you surrender your will to his, you are declaring with your entire being, with every fiber of your surrendered soul, Dios, I trust you more than I trust my own fleeting feelings, my own anxious emotions. I believe in your sovereign, perfect plan more than I believe in the challenging circumstances I see with my natural eyes. That kind of audacious faith, my friend, does not tremble in the raging storm. It stands firm, unshaken upon the solid rock of his unchanging word and character. That kind of profound obedience does not waver in the waiting. It waits with a holy, joyful expectation, knowing God is actively at work. You may be in a season right now where everything seems still and quiet, where the path ahead is shrouded in mist and heaven seems silent. But what Dios is doing in your silence, what he is crafting in the quiet depths of your being, will ultimately become the loudest and most profound testimony of your entire life, reverberating through eternity. Hold your peace. Guard your spirit with all diligence. Trust the divine process. The same Dios who lovingly called you into the silence will be the very Dios who majestically brings you out into the miracle. And your silence, your faithful, obedient stillness will have been the sacred seed that unlocked everything.